Thanks very much for inviting us along today to talk about brands and gaming. Some really interesting stuff from Tim and David there, and there's going to be a lot of talk around engagement and the size of audience as well that's consistent with what they've said. So just to introduce myself, my name's Michael Mann. I'm the co-founder and creative director of Brand Culture. And joining me in the cockpit today is Jamie Saunter, who's our partnerships and business development director. Just very briefly, a little bit about Brand Culture. We're an award-winning full-service brand partnerships agency, and we specialise in the entertainment and lifestyle space. So for about 20 years, we've been helping entertainment companies and lifestyle companies launch their film, TV, gaming properties through brand partnerships, and consistently at the same time helping brands maximise the opportunities that present themselves in the entertainment space. So if you're a brand joining us today, then no doubt it's probably because you'll have noticed how the gaming audience has grown astronomically. And it's not just the Gen Z younger demographic that is driving this growth. It's only set to continue. And as an agency, for many years, we've been banging the drum on behalf of publishers that gaming is not niche. And thankfully today, lots of non-endemic brands are recognizing the importance of this huge audience. And indeed, just in the last couple of weeks, the likes of Kit Kat in the UK and P&G's Tampax in the US are aligning with esports for that very reason. Because gaming really does have this sort of huge digital reach, and with that, a hyper engaged digital community and communities who are interacting with and around the most sit forward of entertainment. And all the hoo-ha around the European Super League just this last week points towards this shift to gaming in terms of audiences, with Real Madrid's president talking about how football needs to be saved, because basically younger fans, younger viewers are turning their backs on rather boring football and they're embracing digital communities. So you can only hazard a guess as to the types of gaming platforms that he's actually referring to there. So for us as an agency, it's not really a question of should brands get involved. It's more about how can brands get involved. And what we'd like to share today is and illustrate is that whatever brand category you're in, whatever marketing or business or CSR objective you have, whatever audience you're trying to reach, there really are a whole host of creative marketing partnership opportunities out there with very willing and accessible gaming companies. So along with gaming demographics, we think it's really important that you consider the motivations and the attitudinal aspects of gaming. Now, we all game to have fun and to relax, but along with that, it's also about building genuine, authentic and long-lasting relationships with people online. And we've included there a Virgin Media ad example where they actually sort of bring that to life in terms of the online relationship. And it's also about building, it's also about this wider digital community as well, which really does provide somewhat of a social lifeline in a pandemic or outside of a pandemic. It's a place where we can connect with others, including gaming influencers who are increasingly seen as today's movie stars and top sports talent. And these digital communities are growing at the expense of traditional social media platforms. And they've been coined as digital campfires, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And these campfires are particularly appealing to the Gen Z and youth audience. And in the past year, we've seen how these digital communities have blown up and really caught light. And they're even shaping our experiences. They're shaping wider culture, blurring music and gaming, for example, with Travis Scott and Lil Nas concerts on Fortnite and Roblox. Jamie.
Now, there are loads of creative ways that brands and the gaming industry are collaborating. often through value-in-kind partnerships. Tim touched on a few examples earlier, and on screen here you can see a few more that show different kind of entry points for brands, as well as some of the traditional activations and consumer-based rewards that brands can often unlock through their partnerships with games companies. And it's also important to just remember that there is a world beyond the likes of Xbox, PlayStation, and the AAA games. In the UK, we've a wealth of world-beating companies developing and publishing awesome games, content, and platforms. We've spoken a little bit about esports, and that's received lots of coverage recently, with non-endemic brands like KitKat getting involved with sponsorship of streams and events. And of course, David just spoke about some of the things that Barclays are doing in esports, another obviously non-endemic brand. It's a whole subject in its own right, and obviously we don't have time to focus on it today. So do tune into Yuki's specific webinar on it next week. Moving on, we've got 3 snapshot case studies to share with you, and just to kind of rationalize why we've specifically chosen these. We wanted to illustrate the range of games developers, publishers and platforms that brands can partner with, the different types of brands that can get involved, and the different audiences being reached, from kids right through to adults. So our first example, with Pringles and Raw Fury's West of Dead, illustrates how you can blur digital and physical boundaries to deliver genuine mass market impact, as well as surprise and delight gamers and the wider community. So running away from flesh-eating zombies is a pretty common motif in video games. And drawing on this, Pringles and Raw Fury created a new character called Zombie Frank. And the campaign idea was to have Frank break out of his digital world into our own, with the joke being that it's the tube of Pringles that he wants to eat rather than us. And it was activated in a really, really cool way. Gaming influencer Leviathan popped a can of Pringles on Twitch, and followers saw Frank burst out of the game into her room. There were TV spots showing Frank breaking out of the TV to try and get his hands on a gamer's Pringles. He also took over the Twitter accounts for Pringles and Raw Fury, and they created a series of films where Frank learned to be more social and human. And at the end of the campaign, Frank reappeared in the West of Dead game as a permanent character, providing players with hints and tips. And it was just a really, really great way for Pringles to promote the consumption occasion to a mass audience. Our next example from Kinder explores how you can bring a fun digital learning experience to kids through gameplay. Now, we all know that Kinder have been producing physical toys as gifts in their chocolate for many, many years. But this partnership with Gameloft saw them create a mobile app that brings their physical free toy characters to life through augmented reality in a closed and safe experience. The partnership also included an offshoot with the University of Oxford's Department of Education, who brought a level of edutainment to the gameplay and encouraged bonding between parents and children through games, interactive stories, activities, and more. And we just thought it was a really, really smart way for Kinder to evolve their traditional toy gifts, especially during a pandemic, when obviously parents were at home, homeschooling kids who had lots of time on their hands during lockdown. This next example we've chosen between H&M and Animal Crossing illustrates how you can collaborate with a game and its engaged community to drive and develop your CSR agenda. So H&M have announced their ambition to improve sustainability and commit to closing fashion's waste loop. And they've also announced Game of Thrones star Maisie Williams as their global sustainability ambassador for 2021. She also happens to be an avid fan of Animal Crossing, which as the game invites players to visit an island, build homes, landscapes, and hang out. So H&M partnered with the game and created a digital Maisie avatar, and she set up her apartment on H&M's Loop Island. And this apartment has a recycling loops machine and a sustainability innovation lab. and the whole Animal Crossing community can go there to learn about sustainability and share their thoughts on a town hall message board. There was also a film featuring Maisie's avatar to launch the campaign. And we just thought, again, it was a really, really clever way for H&M to talk about the work that they're doing in the sustainability space and closing the consumer feedback loop about their work. So H&M is, as I said, it's a great example of a partnership outside of the more common promotional reward-based activities associated with gaming. It's about the power of social conversation and collaboration around the core gaming experience itself. And with brand authenticity and purpose high on marketing agendas, it's definitely worth asking what role your brand could play in this space, because there's a world of digital campfires and micro communities for brands to explore, or even to create yourself. So next, we wanted to share some other digital campfires that are burning right now and highlight the sort of ways that brands could potentially get involved. So Games Workshop owns some of the coolest, most compelling IP in the world, including Warhammer, which has attracted one of the most dedicated and passionate fan bases of any gaming and publishing franchise. They've got several AAA games in the pipeline, one of which is Warhammer 40k Darktide, releasing early next year. And you can bet that any kind of brand partner who can engage these fans through a partnership in an authentic and meaningful way will absolutely reap the benefits of a campfire that's burning red hot. So if we take a broad Warhammer theme, 40,000, we think that this could present an opportunity for an airline partner to create a cool Warhammer experience, inviting fans to be the first to play Darktide, cruising at 40,000 feet in the air, in a specially designed, cool kind of themed cabin, complete with an Xbox Series X, 4K screens, and the opportunity for players to be rewarded with potentially 40,000 flying club points. It's obviously a sci-fi franchise as well, so you can imagine that airline also starting a campfire discussion around the future of travel and what that might look like in the context of kind of sustainability.
So the next one we've chosen is Borderlands, which is a multiplayer game, hugely successful. And one of the themes in it is about discovering alien technology of the future. And we think it's a great example of the type of game, the type of community that brands could explore with regards to CSR and advancing social good. Now, a team of international scientists actually approached the makers of Borderlands and wanted to enlist the help of the Borderlands gaming community to help decode DNA sequences that their computers couldn't actually crack. So they collaborated on Borderlands Science, which is a game within a game. And they invited players to solve these almost sort of Tetris-like DNA puzzles in return for in-game rewards, and the feeling of doing well and contributing to an initiative in the scientific community. So it really fueled gamer appetite to problem solve. And in turn, it's helping advance breakthroughs in science, even in food and exercise. The initiative also enlisted the voice of Big Bang Theory's Dr. Mayim Bialik, who herself has huge social reach as well. So again, broadening the appeal of it, and her voice was used in the game, but also in a promotional video. So we can really imagine how a brand sort of wanting to get involved in something like this could help promote the initiative, could encourage gameplay, and offer rewards as well. The next one I want to share is Among Us. Now, hopefully lots of you will have heard of it or played it in recent times. It's got huge appeal and engagement from kids right through to 30-somethings and adults. And at the heart of the game, the reason why we've chose it, because it represents this idea of discovering the imposter on board spaceships. or airships. And it's about collaboration. So you work with your crew and you talk to the crew members online, and you try and discover who is the imposter. So we thought this could present a brand with a really interesting opportunity to have some fun with the game and with the audience, either becoming the imposter on board and inviting the crewmates to discover you, or indeed you could be the brand that collaborates with the crewmates to find out who the imposter is and throw them off the ship. You could also have a really interesting conversation around the concept of brand truth and what your brand truth is. You could engage the voting mechanics and also the side chats of the game to talk about your product or maybe your CSR initiatives in a really different way. So the last three examples that we shared were sort of opportunities where brands might be able to, develop campaigns around existing digital campfires. But you can also look to build and light your own. And just in terms of a little analogy, as with football, people go along to watch their heroes play football, these professionals. Many, many more watch live on TV at home. But let's not forget the many football players and fans who take part in amateur, sort of grassroots competitions and leagues week in, week out. And in the same way, in the gaming community, you have people who go along, you have gamers who go along to watch their heroes in the esports arenas. Many, many more are watching these events live on live stream. But let's not forget the huge numbers of amateur competitive gamers who are enjoying their own tournaments for small amounts of money and for the pleasure of doing it day in, day out. And we think this bit is really, really interesting because it's not about the size of the fires necessarily, but how brightly they're burning around these tournaments that we think is really, really exciting. So it's this world of hyper-engaged amateur gamers that Battlefy occupies. Now, they're leaders in building these competitive gaming platforms for brands. And they've got many, many years experience doing that for the AAA games companies themselves for their esports tournaments. And it's partly because of that they're really able to help brands develop activity that's authentic, building these audiences for brands. And it can be a lot cheaper than sponsoring an entire esports tournament as well. On screen, we've got a Red Bull North America example. Battlefy have actually partnered with Red Bull a couple of times, so it proves it's really, really successful. And Red Bull effectively offered daily events and daily tournaments for gamers to play. They ran on-pack promotions. There were digital activations around it. And it was really about engaging the community, building this community and rewarding them regularly and rewarding them for their loyalty. So we think it's a really interesting area for brands to explore, especially around that consumption occasion with gaming, but also looking at driving habit and frequency as well. That brings the end of our webinar. Thanks very much, guys.
Right, I'm back. They've let me back in. Thank you, Jamie and Michael. Excellent whistle-stop tour through a whole load of different opportunities there. I feel like you answered Michael's question perfectly about the different opportunities for brands to get involved and what do they do. Can I turn this round very, very quickly? If you're actually, let's look at it in a totally different way. If you're a gaming company, a developer, a publisher, how can you approach brands? And what are the kind of things that the developers should be thinking about before they approach a brand?
Yeah, good question. Well, they could talk to us straight off the bat.
Apart from the obvious sales pitch, Michael.
Well, look, it really depends what the publisher wants to achieve, what the developer wants to achieve in terms of is it trying to raise awareness in which case, you know, who are you after? You know, what's the audience that you're trying to reach? And then it's thinking about, well, what are the creative angles that they might sort of want to talk to the brand about? What are the authentic reasons that the brand might want to get involved in terms of their audience? And then what are you offering? Is it in-game placement? Is it sponsorship around a tournament? Is it promotional rewards, downloadable content that the brand can then offer onto its consumers?
And do brands normally take those calls, or is there a sort of a route to actually reach out to those brands? Let's say you wanted to reach brand A this afternoon. You know, how does the developer go down? I guess through yourselves and through digital agencies, but are there any other routes?
Yeah, I mean, well, certainly I think that the rise in the number of non-endemic brands getting involved in gaming shows that at least marketeers are definitely open to these suggestions now. So it's the marketing teams, absolutely, I would say would be a good first port of call. And hopefully these days, with all the work that everyone's doing in this space, they'll be more open to having those conversations. You just can't ignore the opportunity now. And it isn't just about the promotional rewards, as we were sort of saying there. So it could be, you know, looking at what brands are doing, seeing how, you know, the storytelling, the narrative of what your game offers gamers, how that might fit with a brand's CSR initiatives or with its demographic.
Yeah, that's terrific guidance. Thank you for that. I was quite interested. I like the H&M really deep integration that they've done. It was a fascinating case study. Sounds expensive. And in general, I mean, there's how long is a piece of string question coming up, you can sense. I'm just talking about sort of costs of integration, maybe compared to other things that you know in the past. How does working with a games company stack up for a brand?
Well, yes, it does depend. Certainly from a brand's point of view, you know, which publisher you're going to. And as Jamie referred to, you know, there is a whole world of developers and publishers outside of your AAA and your Xbox and PlayStation platforms. So look, it's not always about the money for those guys. They, you know, the model of helping entertainment owners drive awareness of their new properties, their new releases, for them, it isn't just about revenue. It's about awareness. So there are these value in kind, contra deal opportunities out there. So it isn't just thinking as a brand, you're going to have to pay for a license. Now, yes, sometimes licenses occur, certainly over a period of time, if it's outside of a promotional window. But absolutely going in without a set way of negotiating the partnership, because you're never really going to know what that publisher or developer wants to achieve, what their metrics are, you know, what ROI they need. And similarly, on the publisher side, let's not assume that brands are just going to be expecting to put their hands in their pocket and pay. They might be offering you, you know, $1 million of above the line support because they're going to be promoting the campaign themed around your property.
Wonderful. That's terrific. Thank you. There's a couple more questions for you to have a look at in the Q&A, if that's okay, but I'll leave you to deal with those yourself.